Life doesn't stop while on vacation. Neither do medical issues, accidents, or worse. We are going to ask the questions others won't, so you can protect yourself and your family.
John, you are muted.
That's not good.
We didn't hear any of that.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start over again, I guess.
Okay. I tried to send you a note in the
Sorry about that. I'm not sure. Okay. Well, afternoon. My name is John Sal, the Cruise X. Hope you're still here. So glad to have you here. It was a great intro, but no one heard it, right? We're going to talk about the overserved cruise passenger's death that was ruled a homicide. The family has recently filed a lawsuit, and we've got Tom here. If you don't know who Tom is, hi, Tom.
How you doing?
He's with Scolaro Law in Miami. This is not Tom's case, what I was saying was, but we're going to actually bring Tom here, and we're going to actually talk about this case that happened a year ago. And it's really just incredible. The more we look into it, the more bizarre it gets, and a lot of passengers and guests are talking about it. All the platforms out there, Facebook and the groups, chats, and whatnot, and it's very puzzling. But like I was saying, Tom's like I said, it's not Tom's case, but Tom's legal career spans over 25 years, and he's the founding partner of Scolaro Law in Miami, which specializes in personal injury and has handled many high-profile maritime cases. So we'll like I said, this isn't your case, Tom, but I'm going to walk in your office, and we're going to talk about this.
Yeah.
Can we start with some news coverage so we can kind of get caught up to date here? You can actually see the incident. So there was an incident on a ship, and the passenger had to be subdued, and unfortunately he passed away. And it's really a bizarre situation. So let's get to this here, and we're going to play this here. Mm-hmm.
A cruise ship passenger who was reportedly drunk and unruly on a Royal Caribbean cruise ship has died. Fox 11's Haley Winslow, who broke this story originally, is live for us again tonight, new at 6. Haley.
Hey, Alex, I spoke to a family member of the man who died on the cruise ship. He was aboard with his little son and his wife, some other family members. They say his enraged behavior was completely uncharacteristic of him, that he's a very nice person, and they're trying to get to the bottom of exactly what happened, but they're absolutely devastated, as is the man we introduced you to yesterday, who videotaped the incident.
I just want to give my condolences to the family, and I'm really sorry. Nobody deserves to die, especially like that.
Shocked and saddened, Christopher McHale says he's heartbroken to learn an unruly cruise ship passenger has died. The coroner's office confirms 35-year-old Michael Virgil died aboard Royal Caribbean's Navigator of the Seas.
May he rest in peace. He just needed some help.
It was supposed to be a fun cruise to Mexico, water slides, hot tubs, even an escape room on board. But an hour after departing the port out of San Pedro, McHale says Virgil got off the elevator on the wrong floor
I'm going to knock you the out!
and started making threats, screaming profanity and racial slurs.
The gentleman that was drunk said that he was going to kill us, and then he started chasing us down the hallway. The crew member that I was running with was able to lock himself in one of the towel rooms.
McHale says Virgil injured 2 crew members and then captured video of him trying to get to that crew member by kicking the door to the towel room with his steel-toed boots.
And he was asking for God to forgive him. So, I mean, I forgive him. I'm not God, but I forgive him. It's alcohol. No, I swear to God.
Shirtless and exhausted, Virgil is surrounded by security. McHale says they used bear or pepper spray, towels, zip ties, and eventually handcuffs to detain Virgil. But one of his family members says security injected Virgil with some sort of sedative. And within an hour, he died. The family member says Virgil's enraged behavior is completely uncharacteristic of him and that he was a good man who leaves behind a wife and 7-year-old son also aboard the cruise.
I'm very sorry for what you guys are going through, and if you guys need anything, please reach out. God bless you guys.
The Royal Caribbean Group sent us this statement. We are saddened by the passing of one of our guests. We offered support to the family and are working with authorities on their investigation. And I did talk to the FBI many times today. They are looking at this with a fine-tooth comb. Of course, this happened on international waters. So they are looking at the videos that McHale took, meeting with him for the 3rd time tomorrow, as well as the videos that were in that hallway, the surveillance cameras, and the crew members.
You there, John?
All right.
Yeah.
Wow. That was what a sad situation. And obviously our hearts go out to the family. No one deserves to die.
No.
And of course, the leaving a child behind, just really, really horrific situation. But obviously something happened here, right?
Yeah. I mean, wow is probably, a massive understatement. You almost don't know where to start with something like this, but I think where I like to start with these things is at the human level, right? And let's not lose sight of the fact that this is a family that is now devastated and dealing with unfathomable loss for somebody they did not know that man. They did not know that what you saw on the screen. They knew a loving companion, husband, father. They did not know that. And so I start there, and I give my condolences to the family, because it's a tragedy. No one should ever lose their life like that or anything remotely like that. But now, all right, we know this happened. The next thing is, all right, now what, right? Let's sort of unpack that. And where do you start from? So and this is probably going to be a very fluid conversation. John's going to jump quite a few places and all over the place. But I think, where I would want to start on a case like this is, all right, we've seen, video, we've heard from witnesses, but I think it's appropriate to start with the science, right? What does the evidence show? The irrefutable evidence. And by science, I mean, what was in his system? What does the autopsy show? What was going on with this man? Is this all as a result of overservice of alcohol? Was there the presence of any narcotics? Was there something laced in his drinks? Was there something with regard to his underlying medical condition or conditions, if he had any, that may have precipitated and played a role in this? You look at the autopsy report to see, all right, what is the actual mechanism of death? Why did the heart stop? Okay. And these forensic pathologists are very good at, playing detective and trying to source. No noise, no videos, no nonsense. They just go to, what am I seeing in the cavity, in the body? And, when you see a video like that and you hear that, there's officers or security guards standing on him to keep him restrained, you can't but help think of the natural parallel that occurred with George Floyd in Minnesota a number of years ago, as it started the whole movement. And, we saw what that did in our country. So we all have some experience seeing something like this, and how we react to it and see it is in large part shaped by how we viewed what happened in Minnesota. So what does the physical evidence show us? Was there, compression such that the compression was the cause of this man's death? And then start from there. And once you have that, then you can start to try and put together the pieces. Okay, if this is alcohol and only alcohol, and I thought I read somewhere that it was a 0.18 or 0.185 or something of that nature. It was more than twice the legal limit from what I saw online. Don't quote me as being an authoritative source here, because it's not my case and I don't know the facts. I just saw those numbers reported in the news. Okay, if that's the situation, that alone does not explain that type of behavior. Twice the legal limit is a lot of people at a lot of bars, all the time. There is, in the complaint that was filed, allegations of massive overservice to the count of, I think it was like 33 drinks or something like that.
Yeah, 33.
Okay, so I go back to the science here. All right, what does 33 drinks equal in terms of somebody's blood alcohol content at this man's size and weight? Now, he was a big fella. I think we all saw that from the picture. So would 0.18 or 0.185 or whatever it be commensurate with a man of his size and that number of drinks? Maybe. I'm not a toxicologist, but I will tell you, if you're going to file a lawsuit on a claim like this, you must have the science in terms of knowing the mechanism of cause of death, but you also have to have a toxicologist who can tell you what and how many drinks that equates to based on his body mass. There are formulas and calculations to come up with and ascertain those numbers. Is it 15, 20, or is it 33? I don't know. But I know there's an allegation that he was overserved. He had 33 drinks. Not saying that happened or didn't happen. The plaintiffs are going to have to prove that up. But they're going to have to prove up, what 0.18 or whatever is inside his system, and then answer the second question: is that what caused him to act or have a break with reality like that, or is there more involved? I don't know. So lots and lots and lots and lots of questions here, John. I certainly don't think I have all the answers. I'm just going to point out more questions for you. I'm going to leave you thoroughly confused today.
Well, I appreciate your insight there. The first thing the first thing people say online is they say this. So some say, "What do you expect after 33 drinks, Tom?"
If he had 33 drinks, that's probably what it looks like. I've never had 33. I don't think I could finish 6 or 7. I don't know. I've never maxed out, but I'm going to guess that's probably a close visual of what I would look like if I could even stand upright after 33 drinks. But yeah, that's possible. But here's the thing that I want people to be cautious about is, at 33 drinks, what would be the expected blood alcohol level? It has to be bigger than 0.18 or 185, whatever was reported in the news. It has to be. 33 drinks. John, line that up. 33 drinks. my wall's not big enough to hold 33 drinks.
And then when did they take the test? Apparently he passed on the ship, and then it took some time. I think the ship continued on its cruise, and then it came back. I don't know how that works out.
Yeah, it depends when they drew the blood and where they draw the blood from. I don't want to gross you out here, but they can draw it from the eye. They stick a needle in the eye on post-mortem, and they can draw it. That's pretty accurate.
Okay.
I mean, there's definitely things to do, but I would say you got to look at that. But if they did look, let's have that conversation, right? If you had 33 drinks, that's what you're going to get. But then isn't this the ultimate question? Well, who's responsible for that? Who's responsible for him having 33 drinks? Isn't that the real question everybody wants to know? Is, if somebody has 33 drinks, is there any responsibility on on whoever's serving, and in this case, the cruise ship? Should they be responsible for over-serving somebody to the tune of 33 drinks? That's the question. And luckily, this case is governed by maritime law, not state law. So maritime law, it's the duty of reasonable care. That's pretty much, the standard is. So the question is, was it reasonable or unreasonable to serve him 33 drinks, if that is, in fact, the correct number that he consumed? If this was a land-based event, a bar, a restaurant, they have immunity for things of that nature, pretty much. There's things called dram shop laws. But on the seas and maritime law, there's no dram shops. It's the duty of reasonable care under the circumstances. And so who is at fault? I will say this, in my humble opinion, if it is true that they provided him 33 or 30, 31 or 20 drinks, alcoholic drinks, in that short period of window of time, then I do not think that is reasonable under the circumstances. I think you ask and you poll 10 people, all 10 people would say, yeah, that's probably unreasonable. You wouldn't do that. Now, again, same question, your question, who's at fault? Does he bear fault for that? The answer to that is yes as well. He's got a duty to act reasonably as well. But, there comes a point in time once your faculties are impaired that you do not make sound or rational decisions. So there's that fine line of, when does his responsibility end and theirs becomes primary because they're just pumping him full of liquor and alcohol, right? I think he is, in my mind, based on, again, assuming that these numbers are correct, if they're serving him 33 times, the moment, and everybody has a switch, the moment your faculties start to get impaired, you're not making sound, rational decisions. So if he's at fault before that trigger sets off. And then after that point, they're squarely on the hook, in my mind, and really should exercise care under the circumstances. And to me, I don't see any evidence that they did that in any manner. So that sort of answers the who's at fault question, but then you look at that video, there's so much more to this.
Yeah. And, we haven't mentioned, you mentioned it earlier in your comment, that it's almost like something else is going on. You wanted to look at the toxicology. And we haven't really talked about this yet, I don't think. But years ago, I actually had a chance to sit down with a ship's doctor over a dinner. And I started chatting with him just like I'm chatting with you. And I said, so, what type of things do you run across? He goes, the biggest problem I run across is that little patch behind people's ear. And he talked about women running naked through the ship in the middle of the night, thinking the ship's on fire, and that they were basically hallucinating. And so I came back and I looked up the side effects based on a lot of what he told me further in the conversation. And some of the biggest problems with Dramamine is, of course, how many people do we know that are paranoid when they go on a cruise? They want to take a little extra. So maybe they put 2 patches on, or they take a little extra to make sure it really works because they're so scared or concerned that they might get seasick. And you know what Dramamine doesn't go with? Alcohol and sun.
Yeah. Alcohol.
and it's been known. And so I've always wondered, without any, any real evidence, some of the things that happened, some of the real nefarious things, that potentially could happen if somebody was drinking, exposed to the sun, taking it regularly, the combination of all those things for days. What could happen in this case, maybe in a short period of time, depending on, could this person actually have Dramamine in their system, and maybe an excessive amount, because all those things might have lined up, and maybe that's explains some of this behavior, and also some of the things that may have happened in the past. We've seen big headlines.
Yeah, I mean, you would hope that there's something else that explains this, because it just does not seem to be a normal reaction to alcohol. I mean, everybody's been impaired. Everybody's probably gone over the limit a little bit or had too much. Maybe even, listen, a lot of people went to college. I went to college, okay. Yeah. Been there. But what you saw there was, it just felt like something different. It just felt like something different. And that has to be thoroughly investigated. And I'm sure it's going to be, but on both sides, because it can be, if there's nothing there, it certainly gives more credence to the fact that this is just a, massive, overly over-serving, overly dangerous type of case. I mean, and if there is something there, that certainly, bends the line in favor of the cruise line, because he was combining it with something that, magnified or really heightened the result from this. So that's going to be, a lot of this is, sensational, but I expect a case like this to focus at the end of the day on the science and what was or was not in his system, and to what degree, what exactly his mechanism of death was. But it's just, it's sad all around. Can't get over that. But, the other thing too is, look, all right, so you have the alcohol issue, but then how does that and their reaction match up with some other rights at play here? Don't forget, you saw in that news clipping that he was threatening people. Okay. He was threatening to, I don't know, kill or chase or hurt individuals. Boy, when that happens, again, in my opinion only, all bets are off, right? Now we're not talking about destruction of property. We're talking about everybody's God-given right for self-defense, and to take care of themselves, and the cruise line's obligation to protect its other passengers who didn't sign up for this, didn't participate in it, and are just innocent victims. What if, God forbid, this guy had hurt somebody? Then what? Right? Well, nobody would be all up in arms. He just did not. There were threats, but that doesn't make it any easier. They still have to respond to the threat. They still have to respond to protect other guests, and they probably had some tough choices. If we're being honest about this, is you've got a guy, again, allegedly, nobody sue me. I have got, these are all opinion, but you've got a guy who apparently allegedly is chasing people and making threats. What is the cruise line supposed to do in that situation? They've got to protect the guests. Now, the next question is, did they go too far? Right? It's a damn good question. And it all would depend on the circumstances. We see clips of that video, but how much was he resisting? How much was he fighting back? Did they deploy other, let's call it less lethal means? How many people did it take to handcuff him or to zip tie him? When in the process was he zip tied? Did they make an effort to zip tie his legs too that would have prevented him from getting up and running further? I mean, there's just so many questions that you almost sort of need a diagram here to sort of follow it all out. But it'll depend on, again, everything gets answered at the backdrop of this question. Remember what the duty of care is. The duty of care is reasonableness under the circumstances, right? Was it reasonable to continue serving him? Was it reasonable, to react and restrain him the way they did? Was it reasonable to inject him with the medication? Was it reasonable to stand on top of him? It all depends on the threat that they perceived at the time. I could tell you if there were no threats, if this guy didn't threaten anybody, he was just kicking the door down and, pissing on himself or throwing up, you're looking at a murder charge at that point, or some sort of manslaughter charge, because there's no self-defense. There's nothing like that. But this is not that, at least again, according to the reports. So, boy, I wouldn't want to be on the jury in this case. This is going to be a tough one to sort of sort out. But it's hard. This is a tough one factually, John, because the images are very disturbing. But then that's on the same side of, well, they served him 33 times. That's disturbing as well.
Yeah.
So where's the greater evil here? Where's the greater risk? Okay, let's back the train up a little bit. You can almost say that, well, these are all foreseeable results of over serving someone with 33 drinks or however many drinks they gave it. And if that's the case, you look at the initial conduct as setting this horrific chain of events in motion. So what did I tell you at the beginning? Does 33 equal whatever his blood blood level was? Was there any? They're going to have to calculate all that and find out where this lines up in that. Fascinating stuff.
Yeah, from a distance, I was kind of led to believe that he was actually looking. He lost his cabin. He was kind of waiting to go in to the cabin. First reports that came out, and he just happened to be drinking, like a lot of people do, right? And he just was trying to get into his cabin. He was inebriated, and he was confused and agitated. But apparently, based on that news clip, and even it paints a whole different picture, even from the witness testimony as far as the news. The guy that was shooting the video, he said that he had some issue with a crew member. I think he pushed him or shoved him back, and with great effect. And it wasn't his cabin; it was actually the doorway into the crew area where they keep a lot of their stuff and everything. Maybe the crew member was hiding in there. I don't know, but he was trying to get him, and he was threatening him, and so that goes back to what you just explained. That creates a whole different scenario, because now I think you had the staff captain. I saw 4 bars there, and the complaint says the staff captain ordered the administration of Haldol, which was an antipsychotic drug. And I wanted to go on a couple of those things with you, as far as a couple line by line, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, the plot is thickening here as far as the evidence that's coming, or at least the allegations, and as far as what's coming out here, as far as the narrative, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's there's, again, so many layers to this. I could teach a law school class about this one case, and in law school they give you these exams. The way a law school class works is you get one test at the end of the year. You study all year, but you get one test, and it's a fact pattern. Okay. And the fact pattern, it's some case, it's some bizarre set of circumstances, something. And you got to analyze all the different legal issues and arrive at a conclusion. If you gave this exam to, 50 different law students, you're going to get 50 different answers to it. And I think it's quite fascinating. But a couple of things I would add to this that I think are going to shape what happens is there's going to be so much video that has not been released yet. Shipboard video at the bars, at the restaurant, hallways, interactions. I don't know if some of these guys have the equivalent of body cams on. Maybe, some of them do, some of them don't. But there's going to be a ample amount of video where we can start to reconstruct the timeline of events. You'll be able to see how many drinks he likely had, because it's probably all on video. And the question becomes, when did it appear that he would be a danger? And did they continue serving him when, he appeared to be possibly a danger to himself or others? Did they continue serving him after that point? Or is this guy, just complete poker face, drink, no one ever suspect otherwise? Highly doubtful based on what we saw in the videos. But I really want to see that video, and I'm sure the FBI is as well.
Yeah. And the complaint says if the death was ruled a homicide in the complaint, right?
Mm-hmm.
They said because during the takedown and the force, his body was compressed to the point where it caused some types of asphyxiation, I believe, and caused his body to stop breathing. And then, of course, they said they used several cans of pepper spray, which is pretty significant. Never been around pepper spray. Yeah. A little bit goes a long way. So if you used several, that could actually be a contributing factor, I'm sure. And then you had the administration of a drug, and all those combinations, of course, creates a significant problem in effect that I'm sure only an expert can explain. If it's even explainable, right?
Yeah, and when you look at it all, I'd also be very curious to know, do they practice scenarios like this? Is the security trained to deal with, as you mentioned your story, people running down the hallway at night, naked, screaming, doing everything like that? I'm sure they must, that they have to have policies and procedures in place to deal with this. I mean, these are booze cruises, right? Let's be honest with one another. They're booze cruises. They're unlimited alcohol packages for a reason. So not everybody, sad to say, is going to be on their best behavior, right? Some people save up all year, they let loose, and this is their time. So to what degree have they been trained on this? And did they overstep their training? Right? Did they go too far? Did they not take the right steps in the proper sequence of order, when they're confronted with a situation like this? To me, again, it seems very apparent. There's certain things you don't do. You don't have 2 or 3 people standing on a human being. I don't know. Just call me crazy. I think that's probably inappropriate. And if that is what you have to resort to, you may need to revisit those policies and procedures again. But yeah, tough situation again.
So going back to my one question here, if it's mentioned several times in the complaint that some authority ruled this a homicide, and they're saying it was done by potentially he was being had too much force used on his body and was compressed to the point where he couldn't breathe properly and passed away and perished. And so is my first thought is, well, is someone going to be criminally charged for this?
Yeah, my guess is likely not. Homicide doesn't mean crime. Homicide just means, there was an unnatural death, as a result of somebody else's hands, I guess is the way to say it. But just because you die as a result of somebody else's hands doesn't mean it's a crime, and the big issue to look at in this case is, self-defense, and, to what extent, like, you can almost ask the question in reverse. What are they supposed to do, right? If this guy is not stopped, who's to say he doesn't hurt or kill or severely injure somebody else? That's worse. I don't want to, compare human beings, but that's worse. It's these are the when we make a decision to drink alcohol, and when we make a decision to serve alcohol, there are consequences, okay? But it should never be the consequence of an individual or an innocent person, that's just not right.
And you said it pretty quickly earlier. As soon as you or I or anybody starts consuming alcohol, as long as we're happy in our own little world and we're not affecting anyone else, it's okay. But as soon as we start affecting other people, then it becomes criminal, and it becomes a major liability for either a restaurant or a bar or the public as far as you get behind a car, or in this case on a cruise. And I start threatening or lunging towards people now I'm a danger. And of course, the bigger you are, the more of a threat you are. And this guy really epitomized that. He's a big man.
Yeah, and that's the question in this case, and that's why I want to see the video. Is when did that did that switch flip? When did he go from being, drinking, having a jolly good time like everybody else on the cruise ship to the point where he became dangerous? And was he continuously served after that threshold event? If they are continuing to serve him, okay, regardless of anything else I've ever said in these first 30 minutes, if they continued to serve him when he was demonstrably dangerous, either to himself or others, they're at fault, okay? Period, full stop. That's the law, okay? You do not overserve somebody who is a danger to himself or others. Why would you? Why would you ever serve somebody alcohol who's a danger? And you see it demonstrably, like causing a scene, doing something. You don't serve those people anymore. You stop. You don't keep liquoring them up. Okay. Yeah. So if that happens to be true, then if I'm the cruise line, you got some splaining to do. Okay. That's why the video is going to be very important here.
Yeah, I'm real curious too. What's he look like as he's walking up to the bar at the 32nd and 33rd drink? That's got to be interesting. If it actually happened, the complaint says that, and I don't know where the number came from, because it's almost hard. How did he drink that much in that such? They're saying this was only the first couple hours on the cruise.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's another thing, right? Let's look at the timing of this. Right? It's the first few hours. I think where they got on in Mexico, right? Is that where this they said it came from, or it was on its way to Mexico?
I think it might have been a Mexican Riviera cruise. I'm not sure.
Okay, so yeah, they get on, and then it happens within a few hours. That's throwing them back pretty quick. And again, I'm no expert toxicologist. I can't say how somebody would react to that, or when they would start manifesting those types of signs and symptoms. But God, I want to look at the video on those issues. But let me sober up this conversation. Oh, I didn't mean it. That was a poor pun. But since I went with it, let me sober up this conversation with this, because I'll be Debbie Downer now. Even assuming they overserve him and he's obviously a danger to himself or others, and they still continue to serve him. That answers the question of fault. Okay, they're at fault. Will he have some comparative fault? Probably. But if you've learned anything from our conversations, John, there's fault and then there's damages. Okay, we know he died. Okay, let's see if you can guess how good is have you been a good student about what I'm going to say when you die on the cruise line on a cruise ship? What is the issue?
What is the issue?
Oh, he hasn't been paying attention class. Okay. It's called, remember, Death on the High Seas Act, DOSHA. All right. So DOSHA is at play in this case because the ship set sail from Mexico. It's more than 3 miles away from outside the coast. This is hours into the cruise. So it's certainly in international waters, and he dies. Damages are controlled by the Death on the High Seas Act. So it could be the most pervasive, gross, disgusting type of incident, claim, whatever. It don't matter. DOSHA says you only get pecuniary losses. What does that mean? That means the financial loss of support and services that he was providing to his child and his dependents. That means you do not get pain and suffering. The fact that this child now has to grow up without his fathers. That is some cold, unfair, terrible stuff. But that is the law. So, yeah, this is all tragic. It is tragic. It's terrible. But I just want to pour some more cold water on it. That this is a significant real life issue that the lawyers will have to pay attention to.
Yeah. And I did note that in our complaint, in our comment.
There you go.
See, wasn't too far off.
No? You're getting there. I'm going to make a lawyer of you yet, John.
Yeah. So I know we're getting close to our time here. So I I know that some cruise lines, and because it's all over the message boards and groups, and people watching this later on may go, you know what? Such and such brand, Carnival, limits you to this, and this brand limits you to this, and the other ones don't, or this does, and so on and so forth. But do you think this would get to a point where a ruling might be said where, okay, we're going to limit potentially where either we're going to cut it off at a total number, or as far as the rate of consumption, right?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. The answer is each company is going to decide what level of risk it is comfortable with versus how much they earn as a result of dealing with that risk. Some people may say it's not worth all the problems that they have, and we should cut them off after a certain time, or we should no longer have unlimited. Other people say, you know what? As long as, because again, the default principle is there's no liability for just serving alcohol. There's liability for over serving alcohol when somebody is a danger to themselves or others. That's where it comes in. So they may think, all right, fine. We train our people good. We train our people to know not to overserve. When they get to that level, we exercise caution on those things. And so we're not going to muck with the business model. Other people say it's not worth the risk. They all have to answer their own individual question. But I don't think anything that happens in this case or as a result of this case will affect their policies. Everybody's going to decide this, with an up or down vote based on their own risk tolerance.
Yeah. And they seem to bring up also that they feel there was negligence and wrongful death. It wasn't handled properly. People weren't properly trained. I think the case is probably going to go after that as well, where they're going to try to show that they were negligent in many different ways medically. I mean,
this is so. Look at it from this way. There's a lot of issues here. There's was there negligence in the service or over service of alcohol? Question one. Sure. Question two would be, was there negligence in the manner and way in which they dealt with him as a threat to others to try and control and detain him? And there's a third question was there negligence in administering him an antipsychotic medication? So those are what I have identified as three separate negligence branches they can go down. Either one of which, will win the case or lose the case for you.
Right. So I guess the closing thought on this, because you've covered quite a bit, is, what can we learn from this case as far as consumers go? Is there anything here?
Well, I think for sure. A few things. And again, I'll be Debbie Downer here, is it all starts with us. We have to act reasonably and responsibly in taking care of ourselves, because if we don't, and we leave it to the police, or we leave it to Joe Little security guard and his team of misfits on board a cruise ship, do you want your life being decided by those people? I don't. So right. I think the lesson is exercise. Again, this is a theme I talk a lot about. Exercise some personal responsibility. With regard to alcohol, it's like after midnight. Nothing good happens, after a certain number of drinks, and nothing good happens after midnight. And those two things don't combine well together. So be responsible, because these people, these cruise lines, these people, they want to eliminate the threat. They want to quiet you down. They want to control. They don't want those videos. So God knows how you're going to be treated, arrested, sent back to Mexico, arrested, have called the FBI. Don't take the chance. So, I mean, that's the lesson I pick up from this stuff is, always take care of yourself first.
Right. And, I appreciate your insight for everybody. And I'm sure people watching this, they might have a situation that might come up in the future. They might have something that happened recently. What's the best way people could actually reach out, get in touch with you? Does it cost anything to have a consultation with you or in your office?
Yeah, no, I'm an open book, and I'm free to talk to and free to engage with. You can just call my office line, or better yet, just check us out online. We have two websites, cruiseinjury.law. Or usinjury.law, or send me an email. It's Tom, very hard, TOM, at usinjury.law, not .com, because I don't practice commerce here, John. I practice law.
Right. Well, Tom, I really appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for your patience with my intro. I got so quiet. You know, who knew it was possible, right?
We were waiting to see when you would figure it out, but
And
you
of course, happy holidays and Merry Christmas to you and
too.
everyone else.
Take care.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Bye-bye.